IVM.
Hi, I'm Zarina Poonawalla, a life coach, a business mentor, and a motivational speaker. I tackle the challenges that come with varied work cultures, and I try to give out some cheat codes for loving your job in the second season of the Empowering series with me, Zarina. This show will feature live sessions with me and a participant, most likely to be an entrepreneur, a startup founder, an employee, a recruiter, or just about anyone who strives to love their job and looks forward to bringing in a positive shift at their workplace. On today's episode, I have with me a very reputed doctor from Los Angeles County, USA. All the way from there, I have Mitika Kanabar, and she's an addiction medicine specialist. And she's also done her MD and MPH, right?
Yes.
So hello, Mitika.
Hi, Zarina. Thank you so much for inviting me here today.
Thank you for coming onto the show. So the Empowering series is always spoken about various aspects of life, behavior, patterns. This is the first time we're going to touch upon topics which are related to addiction. And I'm so glad that you've come here and you've come all the way from the USA and you made time for this. So thank you for being on the show today. So Mitika, tell us, what is it that made you interested and how did you find yourself getting into addiction medicine?
This is a very interesting journey that has been so far. So I did my medical schooling here in India, and then I went into clinical research and epidemiology for a while.
Right.
For my MPH, and then I started back doing family medicine and a residency at Hennepin County Medical Center in Minneapolis. So that is a government hospital, to put it simply. So that's where the most vulnerable people come to you for help.
Right.
Because they don't have any other private insurance. That's where they seek help. So one of the things that we would do is we would detox people coming in for alcohol use and for other substance use disorders. So when I was an intern, there was this one patient who was not willing to talk to anybody. And then they're like, why don't you go and try? Because she's clearly suffering. Let's see what happens. So then I went to the ward. I went to her room and she was already in a good mood.
Okay.
And I'm like, what happened? And she's like, you saw that doctor who just walked out of here? Go talk to her. And so I went and talked to the doctor outside at the nursing station. I'm like, hey, ma'am, can you hold up? Wait a minute. So she's like, I'm an addiction medicine doctor.
Okay.
And I told her that the services she needs, our county provides, and it's just across the street.
Okay.
And then
she had a reason to smile.
The whole conversation changed because she knew that we are not an institution that gives her stigma.
Right.
We are an institution that gives her help. And so I'm like, I really want to learn what you're doing.
Okay.
And so the doctor is like, come and do an elective with us next year, like a special rotation. So I did that. And as a part of that, I got to travel to rural areas in America. So that's where, you've driven for like maybe 2 hours outside of the city. You already have apple orchards. You have all the farming communities. In the middle of it, there was a very small hospital. And what it was doing was providing access to addiction care to people around. So people would drive 2 hours to come see my mentors for their medication. That is how bad the crisis was. I got further interested and I did an elective at a place called Hazelden.
Okay.
It's the most famous center for addiction medicine. It's based in Minnesota. So I actually drove there and stayed there for a week, and I followed a patient around, see how the whole detox process works.
You actually followed a patient
Right. I pretended to be like the patient's sidekick.
Oh.
I was the Robin to the patient's Batman. And we attended all the classes together, and I saw the whole recovery process, how it took place, and got some further education. And later in the day, they would educate us more. And it just touched me how, in a usual doctor visit, you only get like a few minutes with the doctor. So many things that get left unsaid.
Right.
And in this field, you actually get to make a difference and you get time to spend with your patients and help them the best you can. The most important thing I would say about addiction medicine is we have to recognize that the patient who's sitting across the desk from you is coming to you at the time that is the most vulnerable in their lives.
Absolutely.
And no judgment, no stigma. You have to be their advocate.
Right.
And I like that. So that's why I went into addiction medicine.
So I think addiction medicine also provides a sense of healing to their patients.
Yes,
you know?
very much so.
Right?
So this is very interesting. I applied for addiction medicine fellowships while I was still in residency. And I went to different interviews. So then I went to an interview at Stanford. And I was like, I'm an international graduate. This is okay. We'll see the area and come back. And then eventually I got accepted. I got a call within 6 days saying,
Oh, lovely.
can you come? And this is not a position it's not a typical position. This is where they hire you. So they're paying you to come and get educated there.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, I don't believe this. And then the first week at work, first day itself, while I was doing, my orientation, my boss takes me for a walk. There was a garden behind our building. And I'm like, why are you taking me for a walk? She's like, you will need this. This should be your mindfulness approach while you do this.
Right.
Addiction medicine, with the amount of healing we provide, we need to be very cognizant of our own healing.
Absolutely.
People are going to come and tell you stories that will sound like nightmares because that's kind of number of things that happen to get them where they are.
Right.
And you have to help them, but you also have to help yourself in that process.
Oh, that's very true, because even as a coach, that's the approach we have to take when we're working with people, because we're dealing with all the negativity or the clutter in their minds.
Yes.
And then when you have to go back, you can't be thinking about what's going on with each and every patient or client of yours, because that's a lot of it to handle.
Very true, Zarina.
So I guess this is a great approach, just walking away and just having a little time for yourself. So we in the country in general, we do have a problem with acknowledging issues like addiction. And we also have a dearth of provision in the kind of facilities we require, right? It's important for people, and especially our listeners, to know, Mitika, what really is addiction, and, how does this begin? This entire journey of addictions in general, because, in America, at least it's being addressed. Yes. Or in other countries, some countries, it's being addressed.
Yes.
There might be a lot of people going through the process, but in India, we don't even have the perfect statistics to tell us what really is going on in the country where addictions are concerned. So it would be nice to educate our listeners about what really is an addiction.
So I can give you the big scientific definition and I can give you the simpler version. The simpler version is addiction is a chronic brain disease that generally starts when you are below 25 years of age. It's in a way regarded as a pediatric disease, if that makes sense.
Oh.
So you have to think of addiction as diabetes, blood pressure, something that you're not going to just get over it, something that you're going to have to manage for the rest of your life. That is the concept of a chronic disease. So if you go for the exact definition, it has just recently been updated.
Okay.
The exact definition, as described by American Society of Addiction Medicine, is that addiction is a treatable chronic medical disease involving complex interactions among brain circuits, genetics, the environment, and an individual's life experiences. People with addiction use substances or engage in behaviors that become compulsive and often continue despite harmful consequences. Prevention efforts and treatment approaches for addiction are generally as successful as those for other chronic diseases. So what this means is addiction is a cycle that starts kind of unknowingly. So if we think of it in Indian context, you are either a teenager or going to college. A friend of yours will be like, "Chal, ek sutta maar le mere saath. Kuch nahi hota. Maine bhi kiya hai. Kuch nahi hoga." Right? So the first time or two, ask anybody who smokes. First time or two, they'll be like, "I don't like this taste."
Oh, yes. I've heard so.
It stinks. It stains my clothes. It stains my hands. I don't like it. But then 4 or 5 times after you're going out with that same friend smoking, then it starts giving you something we call a reward. Okay, so the reward in the brain is dopamine.
Right.
And also in that moment, the nicotine or tobacco is also a stimulant. So what happens is if you're stressed, nicotine makes you relax. If you are sleepy, so you had too much alcohol last night and you're waking up this morning, you are hungover, the nicotine or the tobacco, whatever it is, the form in which you smoke, will make you wake up.
Right.
So it has 2-in-1 purpose. So it takes about 20 seconds for it to hit your brain, the first puff.
Sure.
And it lasts for about 30 minutes. So after 30 minutes, you're again feeling miserable. Whatever it was that you're trying to escape has come back to you. And then you want to have another smoke. So that's how the cycle starts. So if you look at the model of addiction, it's basically using, then withdrawal, and then you are looking for that effect or image again. So that is, you are preoccupied by using again. So it's a vicious cycle that keeps continuing.
Right.
What happens over time is that the brain kind of understands that you are giving it too much of these rewards, and it decreases the amount of receptors in the brain, meaning that for the same effect, now you will need 2 or 3 cigarettes to get the effect of 1 cigarette before.
You will need 2 or 3 cigarettes to get the effect of 1 cigarette.
Right.
Because now your brain is demanding more.
No, the brain is kind of trying to shut it out, like, stop flooding me with all of these chemicals.
Okay, so it's the opposite.
It's the opposite. So these changes that happen change the brain chemistry.
Right.
So when people quit, there is a tough period where your brain chemistry has to readjust, not having that constant reward.
Of course, right.
So these are 2 things that are the hallmarks. First is needing the more number of cigarettes or more number of alcohol pegs, whatever that is, to get the same reward. It's called tolerance. Your brain is becoming tolerant because it's trying to push away what you're doing to it. And the other part is withdrawal. When you don't have that substance, you're very scared.
All right. Another way to look at addiction from just a general perspective, would it be, Mitika, the increase in usage of anything? So, I've seen people, clients or friends, some of them are not addicted. You enjoy that a cigarette a day or a drink a day or, whatever kind of addiction you're into. I'm not sure. But substances or anything that is keeping you intoxicated, you're enjoying it maybe occasionally or just in a very small sort of amount.
Okay.
But is addiction when your entire day is spent thinking about that one particular thing or that activity that is keeping your brain or that system alive in the kind of rewiring that you have done with it? Is that so?
So the second part that you mentioned, you have to keep doing that same behavior again and again. That is actually severe addiction. That does not encompass mild and moderate.
Okay.
So now the terminology has become less stigmatizing. It's called like a person with a substance use disorder.
Right.
And we qualify it into 3 types: mild, moderate, and severe. What you described is severe. Mild and moderate would be different levels of using. Mild would be even somebody who needs those 2 drinks a night, 7 days a week, so about 14 drinks a week. That would be unhealthy alcohol use.
Right.
And then if they cannot do with that, if they try to quit and they cannot do with those 2 pegs at night, then they have a problem. So you will know if you have a problem first if you try to cut down, and then if you try to quit, you have a problem.
Right.
Right. So patients come to me and tell me, I've been doing this for years. My liver labs are fine. I think I can continue this behavior. I'm like, you are about 25. I get what you're saying. Let's try cutting down. Right. I will accept what you're telling me. Let's try cutting down and see what happens. And when they cut down, they will tell me, oh, okay, I get it. Okay, and then we have an open discussion. What went well, what didn't go well, and so on. So that's how we approach it. So, no, addiction is not just that person who's chain smoking.
Right.
Okay? It could be, for females, unhealthy alcohol use is 7 drinks a week. That's pretty much 1 drink a night. A lot of ladies come tell me, like, 1 drink a night, I just need to detox after my whole day at work.
Right.
Well, that is unhealthy alcohol use. Our livers cannot tolerate that.
Okay.
For males, it's 2 drinks a night will be unhealthy alcohol use. So that's when you're not really diagnosed with addiction, but you're heading there, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely does. Because for lay people like me, to understand addiction, it has to be as simple as, 1 drink a night can be so.
Yeah.
For the record, luckily I don't drink, so my liver is intact. So that's not an issue.
Nice.
Well, anyway, why don't you tell us about how people deal with that stage of denial? Because when I'm talking about Indian audiences that we want to target in this conversation, and even, of course, worldwide, globally, there is a stage where, because of the stigma, people deny addiction, and moreover, I'd like to highlight that families, they deny that somebody in their family is suffering from addiction due to that stigma. How would you address something like that?
So what you said is so very true, right? I grew up out here. I know that the stigma is very, very real, whether it's mental health, addiction, or anything that makes us slightly uncomfortable. Some things get stigmatized.
Of course.
Would be putting it simply. So if a person is, say, there's a behavior you need to change. If the person is smoking excessively and the family is kind of hiding it, you have to kind of find out the why. Why are they doing it? The denial stage is kind of comes and goes because even they know in their minds at some level that something's going wrong.
Right.
How would you deal with it? You sometimes have to just let things run their course. That would be my first approach because, patient or family is going to be like, sometimes he smokes, sometimes he drinks, or she drinks, or she smokes. It's,
No, I mean, if you're suggesting to somebody in general, Mitika, that, okay, this person needs help.
Right.
They need a rehab or they need to see a doctor.
Right.
They need to get rid of what they're doing.
Right.
The first denial comes from family. This is what I've seen the resistance coming from family. No, this is not an addiction. ये तो अभी मतलब face चल रहा है या there's something. नहीं, हम लोग देख लेंगे.
Right.
They don't want to address the issue. And I think considering that Indian families live together, we have big families. It's important for people around us to know how to deal with the issue as well.
Right.
Right?
So what you just described is what we call as codependency.
There you go.
Okay.
There's a word for it.
So basically, the people around the person who has a disease of addiction, they kind of circle their wagons.
Right.
Basically what you just said. And trying to protect because, if they say that there's a person in my family has a disease of addiction, then everybody's going to point the fingers at me that I raised him wrong, that I did this, that all of that fallout is there.
Right.
On the other hand, they want to deny it for themselves because they can't imagine what life would be if they were to acknowledge this addiction.
True.
So you have to understand where that is coming from, which I think you do. And then say, look, things have changed. Okay. Help is available. And not just help is available, help is very effective. We have more medications, more ways of therapy, and better centers coming up that deal with this. So that awareness has to go on, which is quite a few people are doing that in this space, but the need is much more. So in my opinion, the teaching starts when people are still in school or college.
Yes.
That is when we have to open their minds that, these things happen. But most important to remember is help is available. So we have to start by creating awareness like you are doing with this effort itself today.
Yes, hopefully.
Yes. And we have to keep going.
Absolutely.
What do you tell the family? Like, I hear you. I still think, in my opinion, I'm just going to do my job and tell you that this is not okay.
Right.
I'm very worried about you guys. And, there's no stigma to this. Let's go beyond that. Let's save that person's life. The reality of the situation is addiction causes deaths. So the mortality aspect needs to be brought in, right? That let's save that person first, and then we will patch up whatever stigma it is that you feel.
Sure. That's well said.
So you as a friend or a concerned member, your job is to just let them know that you are there to help them, that, things have changed and that help is available. But you have to understand from your end, you cannot predict the consequence of what you just did. You just need to know that what you did was in a good heart. They may or may not listen to you. And you have to be okay with that before you even start this conversation.
That's important, actually. I think people need to understand how to deal with situations like this. And maybe something as simple as just being okay with the consequences, knowing what they're going to do, and do it with a good heart.
Yes.
That's a good start.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Right. So, we're talking about various addictions here, and there are innumerable addictions. We know that. Which are the ones that top your chart in terms of the kind of patients you have, and, how do you deal with it?
So the biggest addiction currently is tobacco. That's kind of worldwide.
Right.
When you look at India, about 42% of men use tobacco in some form, whether it is smoked or chewed or any other form. Okay. So that is adult males. This is a new survey. As far as women are concerned, about 14% of women use tobacco in some form or the other.
Okay.
In India, these are adult women. Again, if you look at the size of our country, that is a big number.
Right.
You're talking about multiple crores of people, right? Almost half of the population
Yeah, of course.
needs help with tobacco.
Right.
And with a country more than 1 billion people, that is a big deal. Okay, so that is number one. Second would be alcohol. Alcohol, because it is socially normalized, there's not much stigma associated with having a drink here or there.
Right.
It kind of goes under the radar and goes undetected for a longer time.
Is it, I mean, alcohol is later detected in the system in terms of addiction? Is that what you mean?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Because people think, chalta hai, itna to hota hai.
Right, right.
Client ko lunch pe leke gaye, it doesn't look good if I give lunch or hopefully dinner. If I give them alcohol and I'm not using
Right.
in front of them, it won't look good. Or I had to go party with my friends and there was just so much peer pressure to go have that drink. So it gets normalized in many ways. Even look at our movies. Look at the movies 20 years ago and look at it now. It's very much normalized. There are songs about it.
Oh, yeah. Too many.
Too
And
many.
everyone's dancing to those.
Exactly. I mean, they do have a good beat. You have to say
you
that.
you can't deny that.
So as far as the alcohol problem in India is concerned, the newer survey says that there are about 16 crore people in India who use alcohol. Out of that, about 5.7 crore people actually need help. And out of that, 2.8 crore people need help like right now.
That's huge. Massive.
Yes. And do we have those centers? Do we have that many experts? Not really.
Not really.
So those two are the biggest ones in my opinion. Opioid epidemic is starting in India, especially in the northern states. It has been in the news, but I don't hear so much of it out here in Bombay.
Yeah, in Mumbai, it's not really hit that hard, I'm guessing.
Yes.
But it's just a matter of time, don't you think?
Yes.
It doesn't take time for a vice to become contagious in today's age.
Right. Exactly. So we are probably seeing the tip of the iceberg, as you rightly said.
So how do you think we need to deal with, probably let's pick one of the two. Let's talk about alcohol, for instance.
Okay.
When you're dealing with people who are undergoing that kind of addiction, what is the probable form of treatment or procedure, or how should they actually kind of retract from it?
Okay. So very good question. So as far as alcohol is concerned, like we just discussed, you might be using just a little bit, maybe only a couple of drinks or maybe about 4 a day. Small, real drinks, okay? Not filling a full tall glass and calling it one drink. You can cut down by yourself.
Okay.
And see how it goes. Okay. If you have a problem, you have to seek help. People who are using much more, like they drink about 5-6 drinks a day, maybe binge on the weekends, binges again, anywhere between 5 for men and 4 for women.
Right.
Drinks in a day. Plus they will have more. So some patients will tell me, I had a 6-pack, I had a 12-pack of beer, whatever.
Oh, yeah?
They need to be seen in a professional setting. Again, they can always try to cut down by themselves. That helps. Cutting down always helps. By the time you go to a doctor, if you've cut down, your medication requirement is going to be a little bit less. Now, the heavy drinkers who can drink up to like anywhere between 750 milliliters or a liter of vodka a day, they need professional help from the get-go. Just go in, get checked in. And I might refer them to like an inpatient service. I might refer them to what we call a residential center. So there are many levels of care, as you rightly pointed out. Why can you not just stop the alcohol? The main reason is that you have a high risk of seizures. Seizures meaning fetana, akri, whatever you call it. Right? So alcohol, when you've bathed the brain in alcohol for a long time and you suddenly take it out, the brain doesn't know what to do and you can have a seizure. And if you're a heavy user, there are different things that can happen. It can affect your brain and your heart in such a way that it is very dangerous and you need to be in a hospital setting to monitor you. For example, sometimes people will even start hallucinating and seeing like relatives that they've never seen.
Is it?
They think that they're sitting next to them. That's very rare, but it does happen. And so those people need really higher level of care. So it's not okay to just say like, just stop it. Alcohol and sleeping pills, you can't just simply stop. Get an opinion.
Okay. So you need to break it down.
Yes.
Probably reduce the number of drinks you're having.
Yes.
Is that what you mean?
Yes. You can reduce the number of drinks you're having. If you want to completely quit, if you're drinking a lot, you need to seek help.
All right. And how about drug substance abuse?
It depends on the drug.
Okay.
Again, cutting down is always available.
Right.
As far as other substances like tobacco is concerned, very good medications are available. You can even get the patch or the gum over the counter. You can start substituting right away whenever you're ready. And there are prescription medicines available that a doctor should take care of, know all of your risk factors and then prescribe that. That we spend a lot of time studying for that. So we have more experience rather than just going to a pharmacy and picking up the drug. I would never advise that.
Okay, so you don't need to try and self-medicate. You need to take the right help, the right guidance.
Yes.
And of course, if you're in the initial stages, somewhere around, you can probably go and take an off-the-counter.
You can take the gum or the lozenges for nicotine off the counter, but not any of the prescription medications or tablets that you're supposed to take. Don't buy it over the counter. Do it only under supervision.
Okay, that's wonderful.
And as far as opioids are concerned, we all know there's a big crisis in the US. In India also, it's kind of coming up. So what the government has done is they have provided these medication-assisted treatment centers that are coming up where people get substituting medications to help people not use those heroin and other substances.
Like I said, vices are contagious.
Yes.
It doesn't take time to travel, huh?
Yes.
All right. I want to focus on a couple of other aspects with you, but let's quickly take a short break, and I'll see you on the other side of this break.
Hey everybody, welcome to another amazing week on the IBM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, you know what? I'm tired of asking you to follow us. This time I expect you to follow us. Please make sure you follow us. If you're not following us, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Seriously, I'm sure many of you would like that, but that's the only threat I have. We'd also like to thank our sponsors of the network this week. Thank you, Storytel. Thank you, Intel. We're really grateful for your support. This week on Cyrus is joined by Prakash Malia. Prakash is the Managing Director for Intel India's Sales and Marketing Group. Prakash and Cyrus get into talking about Prakash's travel habits and also talking a little bit about Prakash's hobby of photography. So really fun conversation. Do check it out. On Agla Station Adulthood, hosts Ayushi and Ritasha talk about confidence and self-esteem and how it's different from self-awareness. On the Boundless podcast, Natasha shares the problem of being a brown immigrant in a foreign land and how to cope with it. She also recites her poem on being average and calls it a new voice. This week on GBCD, Farhad and Sunetru take us through the deep understanding of being intimate with other people and recreating those spaces. On States of Anarchy, Hamsani is joined by Ameya Nayak to discuss international law and how it measures up in current geopolitics. On Football Should Ball, hosts Gaurav, Karthik and Siva talk about Jose Mourinho's shock appointment as the Spurs coach. And of course, the big game last Saturday, Man City versus Chelsea. On The Habit Coach, Ashton talks about voting and acknowledging the choices that we make with a mindful approach. On Pragati Podcast, we have repeat guest Ameya Nayak, who talks to Pawan about refugees, distress, migrants, and movement of people across the world. On Ganatantra this week, Alok and Saryu are joined by Dr. Srinath Raghavan to discuss politics of the armed forces, nationalism, the impact of social media on perceptions of the army, and more. On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet is joined by actress and storyteller Asas Channa and also VP Content and Strategies at One Digital Entertainment, Sudeep Lahiri. Together, they talk about the influencer ecosystem and discuss strategies that can help brands collaborate with influencers better. On the Geek Fruit podcast, Thinkar and Tejas talk about all the notable dragons that we have watched in movies and TV shows throughout the years. And with that, let's get you on with your show.
Welcome back, and I'm still in conversation with Mitika Kanabar, and we're talking about addictions, right? So we've been discussing plenty of ways to probably deal with addiction and how it's happened. You know, we start with the origin and we've gone on to giving solutions, right, Mitika? When does this occur that you just stop realizing that you're an addict or you want to do nothing about it? How does this particular zone or phase take place when a person is going through this process of addiction?
Very good question, Zarina. The thing is, addiction may initially start as I'm just trying something out. Then it becomes like every day in the office, I'm going downstairs and having a smoke. That is my break time with all my friends, and I have this buddy group downstairs.
Right.
And then at some stage, what happens is that you don't even notice yourself reaching for that drink, reaching for that cannabis, reaching for that cigarette smoke. That is when addiction happens.
Okay.
So if you think of it in brain terms, initially you have the ability to say no.
Right.
There's a region that's between your eyes, just on the frontal lobe of the brain, that's behind the center of your eyebrows.
Okay.
And that is called the prefrontal cortex. So in Indian terms, the easier way to say is just behind where would you visualize a third eye, or just behind where you put a bindi on.
Correct.
That region of the brain is capable of understanding what your emotions are, understanding when to say yes and no, and understanding how to react to stressful situations. What happens when the addiction takes over is you completely bypass this loop and you think like at a much lower level. It's kind of like eating food to survive. Completely bypass the ability to say no, and that's when addiction takes over.
Wow. So from a slightly more scientific yet a very natural way of understanding, people need to just understand that you should make sure that you let that block remain a block, and not let it go forward and just open the gates forever.
Right.
So the bypass shouldn't happen, right?
So true. So true. You nailed it.
Thanks. I'm just trying to get a feel of how to put things in a medical term here.
Thank you.
I'm talking about blocks, which has nothing to do with medicine.
Yes, but you nailed it. The earlier you seek help, the more chances of success.
Excellent. All right. So let's talk about how something as simple as addiction can be translated into the newer forms of addiction. Have you faced anybody with tech addiction or social media addiction? Because I guess that is something, like you mentioned, this is a pediatric phase where addiction can take place up to 25 when you're talking about the other things that we mentioned. But when I'm seeing the new generation and the old all together, as this whole community of people and the human race, everybody from that 6-month-old child to a 60-year-old man or woman, fully grown, fully understanding, are all addicted to their phones or their laptops or whatever form of technology they're kind of using. Have you noticed that, Mitika?
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. Thank you for bringing this up.
I mean, I don't know why it is so important. I would love to not have my phone for a couple of days, and trust me, I really wouldn't care if I didn't check what's going on.
Okay.
But I've seen parents just give away that iPad to their kids so that they can eat and watch Peppa Pig or watch one of those fun things that they do. And then you're looking at the older generation, they're playing Candy Crush and they're keeping themselves busy. And you're like, hello, what's going on here?
Yes.
So what's your take on this?
So my take on this is basically we don't know what we are getting ourselves into. Recently, a study was published by the American Academy of Pediatrics. They did an MRI study of the brain. And they saw that kids are going to start missing milestones if they have too much screen time. It just came out on this week.
Wow.
So this is a big deal. So if you are giving a phone to a child, you're trying to basically not look after that person and get other things done. Now in today's life, especially with nuclear families, we have dearth of the number of hands needed at home, right? And I always tell everybody, one child needs 4 hands. You need at least 2 people to get things done. One person will hold the child, other person will cook or take a shower or whatever, right? So that is an easy way out to give the child either an electronic babysitter of some kind, whether it is a tablet or a phone or a TV.
Right.
But beyond that, things have evolved. Like you will see forums or other people talking about, grandparents ne kya diya? Oh, it's a very cool thing for the grandparents to gift you an iPad for your first birthday.
Isn't it?
I'm like, oh my goodness, no. No, we want the children to seek help from us. That eye contact, that social interaction is so, so important and morphs us into the people we are going to be.
True.
If you don't do that, again, the third eye is not going to develop right.
So it starts all the way from that age.
Yes.
And so it's all forms of addiction. So you actually put this addiction as well into that category of things.
I would think of it as more of an overuse, right? Because right now it's not classified as an addiction, although I meet everyday people who will tell me I'm addicted to my phone.
Isn't it?
But the DSM, that is the manual that recognizes all of these things, has not recognized technology addiction yet. We call it problematic internet use.
Problematic internet use.
Yeah, that's the terminology we use. And as far as gaming is concerned, the teenagers who are on PUBG and Overwatch and other things.
Oh, yes, of course.
That is slowly getting recognized as an internet gaming disorder. And so these things are happening. And I agree, even the people in the geriatric age group, they're really addicted to their phones. They are the people who are sending, 300 WhatsApp forwards a day.
Yes, with the images of good morning, good afternoon, good night. have a good day, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So it's something, it's like a toy they have.
Yes.
The kids have a toy.
Yes.
And the adults have a toy.
Yes.
It's basically something that they're just entertaining themselves with.
Yes.
And I wouldn't blame them, because I do realize that in general people have gotten so busy. So their children or their families are so busy, and in a time where everybody's busy, you're not doing the regular home cooking or, making things at home anymore. Everything's coming from outside. You have a lot of free time in hand.
Yeah.
So what do? Use your phone.
Well, or you can come up with interactive ways that actually help your children with your milestones. So sometimes I hear that, oh, my kid is too fussy, it doesn't want to eat.
Right.
So you have to recognize what's going on. You can get help. For that, you can ask your pediatrician what to do, whether they have some sensory issues with the kind of textures of food. That is a completely different branch in itself. There are some kids who are going to be like, if they're not with a phone, then they're jumping up and down. That means that their joints need activity.
Right.
So do some sensory yoga with them. Kids love it. They laugh as if they've never had so much fun before. So do some, even if you give maybe 1 minute for a 1-year-old child, 3 minutes for a 3-year-old child, once an hour, they're going to calm down.
Right.
But that has to be face-to-face interactive time. Even if you are giving them a book, read it to them first and then see what happens.
Sure.
So that is my take on it. It's very hard to raise screen-free kids, but it's such a good experience that you are going to enjoy it, and it's also going to add to your own wellness.
I would reckon at this point that, at least when this comes to me as cases, I usually just reckon that if you want screen-free children, you need to be screen-free in front of them for a little while. Wherever you can.
Yes.
I guess because, they're watching and learning. So the lesser they see, the lesser they will understand that, okay, this is not all that is in the world.
Yes.
Usually the kids are just watching their parents on the phone. Of course, it's work related. I understand that it's not always just for pleasure.
Yes.
It's a lot of work that you're doing and everything's on the phone.
Yes.
I get that. But maybe there should be that little time of digital detox in the family.
Yes.
You need to, as a family, I've been talking to a lot of grandparents these days, and one thing that I do recommend is, if you want to spend time with your family, the one thing you need to do is dinner time, no phones, obviously.
Yes.
And the other thing is, maybe once in a week, you need to indulge in board games.
Yes.
That's an activity I'd love to do. And I think people just don't even have board games anymore at home. They don't know what it's like.
Exactly. So depending on the age of the child.
Right.
Very true, Zarina. You are very well versed in all of this.
Thank you. I'm not as well versed as you are, because addictions, I'm just enjoying this conversation so much. I'd love for it to keep going on and on and on. So going back to my original question, do you have people who come to you with tech addiction or social media addiction?
Yes. Unfortunately, I have to say, yes, I do.
Okay.
And this is such an unrecognized branch that I have to personally make sure that these people are able to book an appointment and are able to get to see me.
Right.
Because if they go to a rehab center, the rehab center is going to turn them away saying that, this is not a real substance. We don't deal with this here. We are all people who are sober from alcohol or other substances. So we don't know what to do with this.
Sure.
So this is a branch that I'm developing as a specialty of my own. What happens is that I get teenagers and young adults who are hooked to social media. They had some other vulnerability, whether it is mental illness, whether they had some adverse childhood experiences, meaning some kind of neglect while they were growing up, or just some bad things happened to them, a parent died, whatever happened.
Right.
And they get bullied on social media or they get catfished on social media. And by the time they come to me, they are severely depressed. Sometimes they even might be considering to end their lives, and that is a very sad situation.
Very sad.
And they get hooked into these devices because these devices have been engineered to hook you, almost like you are gambling in Vegas. And some of the games even today, like Overwatch and other games, I don't want to take specific game names, but they give you these rewards to just come up and log in every day. Right? And some of the games even have this concept of, spending money. So these are the people who are already socially isolated. They find a group of friends or avatars or other people that they know online in that gaming atmosphere. And then they're entrenched into spending more and more money than they have. So by the time they come to me, a lot of consequences have happened. And we have to work our way back very slowly from there. So as parents or as relatives, grandparents, we all need to watch out and make sure our children are not getting targeted in cyberspace.
In a way, just understanding the difference between virtual reality and finding your validation there,
right,
as opposed to understanding tangible reality around you.
Yes.
Maybe that.
And once a kid is entrenched into that, don't take that phone away.
Sure.
Try to just cut down the time initially.
True.
Because, as we said, their ability to say no hasn't developed properly. So we have to treat it differently.
Fair enough.
Okay.
That's interesting. And that's helpful as well, Mitika.
So, Zarina, as a life coach, do you have people coming to you with stress?
Of course, all the time. And in fact, that's why this topic that we're discussing, Mitika, is so close to me currently. Because I do have cases personally as well where, stress has led people to addictions.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're discussing and dealing with that kind of addiction.
Mm-hmm.
You are supposed to first eliminate the stress from their lives, right? And one thing I've realized, Mitika, is stress cannot be eliminated.
Yes.
You need to manage it.
Yes.
You need to balance things out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure if you can find that balance with certain things, you can deal with having your occasional drink or an occasional smoke and not be addicted to anything, but enjoy your vice as it should be enjoyed.
Yes.
Because if it's there, you enjoy it. Okay? But taking it beyond that, I guess then, people come to me and they say, Zarina, I'm so stressed, I didn't have a choice. So I've recently gotten into, have you heard of these newer things that I've heard? And I'd like your expert opinion on how certain substances are now legal because they have medicinal properties. I've been listening to that a lot from clients and it kind of worries me because I'm sure you'll have better knowledge of that. So you want to highlight a little bit on that.
So as far as what you said is concerned, with stress being always present in our lives, that is very true. And life is what you make of it at that point. It's easy for me to say this in this moment, but when all of us face stress, first thing to do is to step back and evaluate your situation. At any point, if you're trying to take the easy way out, it's not really going to work.
Oh, definitely.
So even if there are certain legal substances that are proven for stress or whatever, if you make it your daily thing that I'm stressed and I'm going to use this substance, whatever may it be, then you're going kind of having a crutch. And that's not how you life or that's not how you adult.
Sure.
In my experience, when people use these things day in and day out, what happens is there's a kind of an amotivational syndrome. They're kind of just managing the right now. They stop looking towards the future, especially in children. They will suddenly start saying, I don't even want to go to college. Kya fark padta hai? I'll just take up some other kind of job, or maybe I'll find something else to do.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying college is the only way to go. But even if they're going to trade school, they don't really actually go up and even sign up for these things.
True.
So you have to understand that whatever your stress management is, it has to keep your brain chemistry okay.
Yeah. So the brain chemistry needs to remain intact.
Yes.
Also, maybe two little things that I think help stress while we're at it. One is, like you rightly said, just take a step back and evaluate your situation. Right. What I like to call that, Mitika, is pressing that pause button in your head,
Yes.
You have a big red buzzer in your head and you press it.
Yes.
Before you react to something.
Right.
So you can find the right response instead of a reaction. So I'm guessing that's one way of dealing with it.
Yeah.
And the other way is to stop using the word stress so often.
Yes.
The mind, I'm pretty sure you have better knowledge of the mind and the brain and the chemistry on that. But I think what we repeatedly tell ourselves, it really works, doesn't it?
Yes, of course. So,
what if I eliminate the word stress from my daily life and I just stop telling people how, of course, share your experiences. But what if I just stop telling people I'm stressed? 3-year-olds are stressed because they have to go to school. 10 standard kids have exams. The people like us, we're working, we are stressed, families, blah, blah, blah. So you're never getting rid of the word, right?
Right.
How do you eliminate it? You should just stop using it.
Well, rose by any other name. and all that. But the point is, yes, you have to reframe the idea of stress as life events. This thing happened in my life. I have two choices. I can say that my boss got mad at me because I sent the email very late. How can he do this? Or
Exactly.
you can say that, okay, this is where I went wrong and this is how I learned from it. And at the same time, I have to recognize that so-and-so person is giving me a second chance and understanding the value of me.
Absolutely.
So the respect has to go both ways.
Yeah.
Especially in work situations, at home situations. You have to respect the other person's perspective. And most importantly, you have to respect yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm in this situation. I'm feeling scared. I'm respecting myself and understanding this. And I also know that I need to improve and get better.
Yeah. I like to replace the word stress with momentary challenge.
Yes.
When I'm usually asked by clients, I say, first, I'm not saying this word doesn't exist. I'm just saying stop using it because you have said it so often to yourself that you know how you start saying a lie and start believing it when you say it so often?
Right.
The same goes for a lot of words that you're putting into your head constantly.
Right.
So if you just use momentary challenge, it allows you to deal with it such as a momentary challenge and not stress.
I have to say, Zarina, you have a very beautiful way of putting things.
How sweet, Mitika. Thank you.
So you just, basically what you did was you told your client that don't be in a negative spiral.
Yeah.
Have hope and be in a positive spiral.
Absolutely. It's all about hope. I mean, what else do we have really?
Yes.
All right, Mitika, let's come to the last segment of this conversation. Always have to ask all my guests, what is it that empowers them? So, because this is the empowering series, right? So I'd love to know from you, what is it that empowers you?
So I was thinking about this and I realized that when I think about what empowers me, it actually becomes a gratitude list.
How beautiful.
I'm so grateful for so many things that have happened and so many people in my life that have touched and changed the course in some way. So what empowers me in the moment at any given time is my spirituality. When I think about spirituality, I have to understand that I only have what is in my hands today. And I can have a good heart, do what I have to set out to do, and not expect any reward or any outcome from that. Just do it for the sake of doing it.
Right.
That is what empowers me. That is the steam. That's the wind beneath my wings. You can say that. For that to happen, so many things have to align. You have to have a job which has good boundaries. You know, you have good work-life balance. So that is empowering. Having a family, spouse, everybody kind of align with your values, respecting each other's boundaries. Having those boundaries is very empowering because you say, this is what I'm comfortable with and this is what I'm not comfortable with. So you have to work over it over time. And I have those boundaries in place now and it's really, really changed the game.
How beautifully put.
Most importantly is my time with my plants. I garden in the backyard and that is my 15-20 minutes of just peace.
That's something we share in common. Yeah, totally. Because I absolutely love plants. So there was a lady who came to my balcony and she came to my house and she just said, I've been seeing all the windowsills and you have a beautiful collection of plants. Do you have indoor plants? We like to do a shoot with you.
Oh, wow.
I said, yeah, sure. And that happened. Happened. We got into the papers for some reason unknown, unknown to people. And everybody's calling me and asking me, we didn't know you're into plants, but how am I supposed to express that this is such a beautiful and simple way of de-stressing. It's so therapeutic and it's got such a lovely way to just be with nature in the middle of all the hustle bustle that you're living in. Right? So I completely feel you on that one. It's beautiful.
It is.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So that's what empowers you. Gratitude, setting boundaries, your plants, a bit of horticulture. Wonderful.
And spirituality.
And spirituality, of course.
Yes. So tell me what empowers you, Zarina.
Lots of things. But one of them for today that empowers me is probably being with somebody as well-read and knowledgeable as you so that I can actually imbibe a learning from you and share that with more people. So today you have empowered me, Mitika.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And on that note, thank you very, very much for your valuable time and actually making it to the show, making sure that we squeezed you in somehow and you made time for us. Thank you so much. This has been great. And I wish to see you again for sure. And on that note, I'd like to also tell our listeners one last little thing, just a nugget of thought. One can design a resilient regime in order to have priorities, which in turn will pull you away from your addictions. And remember that addictions start when you start giving up on yourself. So the day you decide to be addicted, remember you're giving up on yourself. And then you can go to somebody like Mitika to help you to bring you back to yourself. So in fact, IVM Podcasts is one platform where we do have different shows and we're talking about various issues. There's another show which is up on our podcast. It's called Heal and Hearty and it's hosted by Zarina Chachi. She's a nutritional therapist and a certified cancer coach. And she also helps you to understand healthy lifestyle without medication, So it's kind of interesting because the Empowering series has different ways. And, we have we have various interesting podcasts which talk about similar issues but with different perspectives. So it's a good listen. And that brings me to ask you something. Mitika, how do probably our listeners reach you, or how do people who want to follow you or get some advice from you reach you?
The easiest way to get in touch with me is to visit my website, which also has a blog. It's www.mitikakanabar.com. There is a contact us form over there. Just go ahead and fill it out. And the other way would be to tweet or Instagram. My handle is Kanabar MD on both.
Kanabar MD.
Yes.
Okay.
And then my email is mindsatwa@gmail.com.
I like that, Mindsatwa. Interesting. Thank you so much, Mitika.
Thank you very much, Zarina.
If you liked this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.
How many times have you caught yourself Googling stuff on health and wondering if it's the right information? How many times have you heard different health experts give opposing views, which has only left you confused? There are rising cases of cancer, heart, diabetes, stress, and autoimmune diseases. Meet the patients and the experts who paved the path of true healing. Join me, Zarina Chachi, cancer nutrition coach and nutritional therapist on Heal and Hearty. I take you through my own journey of recovery from an incurable disease and the journey of so many others who healed only via nutrition and holistic healing. Find the answers you seek for what's good for your health and what's good for your soul. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. Don't forget your date with good health.
How many times have you motivated yourself to improve your sleep or lose weight or be more productive? How many times have you failed? Hi, my name is Ashton Doctor. Tune into my show, The Habit Coach Podcast, where we focus on creating small, tiny habits to improve your life instead of those big, impossible tasks. So make listening to me a habit every Monday, Wednesday and Friday on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com or on your favorite podcasting app.